Welcome to the Run Out. I am your host, Neil Barrett. Today, I am joined by a friend of the pod, Mr. Brandon Hooten. Brandon, how you doing?
Doing well. How are you?
Man, I don't know if you can tell. You can tell a little bit right here. I am
Little burn.
I am burnt. I was at Gillette today for the Final Four, and the weather was gorgeous. It was perfect. It was the kind of weather that like you could sit out in the sun and not get overheated. There was a gentle breeze, but it dawned on me like midway through the first quarter. I was like, I'm going to burn if I sit out here. So I actually moved to the other side and sat in the shade. But apparently I still got lit up. But
it's always the back of the neck when you don't think about it till it's too late, and by that point you're already like a lobster.
Yep. So anyway, some of you may be wondering why Brandon is here. Brandon is going to be joining me for the foreseeable future. In an indefinite time, he is going to be co-hosting, for lack of a better term. He may at some point step away. He's got some other projects, but for at least the foreseeable future, Brandon will be here with me every week talking lacrosse. I'm pretty excited about it. I don't want to put words in your mouth. I'm pretty excited about.
I'm not excited at all. I don't want to be here.
I hate this.
Nah, I'm excited. PLL's coming up, so that's always a good time of year, and lots to talk about with this weekend, especially.
For sure. Lots to talk about this weekend. Before we get to that, though, and I did not tell you I was going to do this. I literally just remembered, being that you are new to the show, I wanted to give people at least some kind of an understanding of who you are. So the question I like to ask is, how did you find the game? How did you kind of end up where you are?
Yeah. Let's see. So I think it was must have been 2005, I believe. My dad got free tickets to a Colorado Mammoth game somehow. He went, he loved it. 2 years later, he got season tickets, and then from then on, I was watching the Mammoth. And then I never was into like the college game or really just the field game in general. I played basketball growing up, and box lacrosse was basically basketball with sticks. So it was like really easy for me to understand. And obviously the atmosphere is much different. So I gravitated to that. And then must have been when I was in college, I was doing some project. I think I was writing about the Mammoth, and it was like, man, this is awesome, but I need something in the summer. Like I'm just, I go 7 months or whatever the box season is watching lacrosse, and then I have to go watch baseball or soccer, which I know you're a soccer guy. I personally am not. So that for me was like a dead zone. So I was like, you know what? Let me just start watching field. Like, I'll suck it up and watch it. And then from then on, I just kind of learned to love it. And And then at some point started doing some photography, and then that led to University of Denver, shooting their games, shooting PLL weekends, and now talking about it, I guess. So
that's interesting. I didn't even know that you came from basketball, because that's where I came from too. Like that was, growing up in North Carolina, like basketball was everything. So that's really interesting. It's funny because I've in all the kind of conversations that we've had, I've sort of felt like you and I see the game in a really similar way. But it's funny though, because that led you, or your first kind of foray from basketball was into the box game.
Yeah.
Because I mean, lacrosse is largely lacrosse, kind of no matter what version you're playing. But I've never really thought about, I mean, obviously picks and rolls and stuff. Like there's those kind of obvious elements, but I've never really thought of the box game being like basketball. So
yeah, and there's definitely elements of that in the field game too. But just when you look at the way it's played, like the field game, you're pulling the ball out a lot more, 40 yards from the cage.
It's more ISO.
You're going behind the cage a lot more versus box. Like it's all right here. And you have to be intentional with the way you set picks, how close you are, the rolling and all that stuff. So it was just easy to understand. And like, by the time I was old enough to even play, my mom was like, yeah, you're going to get concussed. Like you can't play lacrosse. So everyone's always asking me like at games when I'm shooting, like, did you play lacrosse? I'm like, no, like I wanted to, but this is how I get my fix now, is just being a fan.
No, that's cool. I mean, and maybe you can be the the one that can, get me into the NLL.
I'm gonna try.
It it hasn't happened yet, but
Hey, you're pretty close to Bandit Land. If
I
you can get
know.
out there, you'll instantly fall in love. Unfortunately, you'll probably be a fan of them, but it is what it
Well,
is.
that has been one of my big challenges, as people who listen to the show know. Like, not having a rooting interest has made it a lot harder. So,
Yep.
yeah. But let's get into some actual lacrosse talk here. Obviously the Final Four, the whole thing that goes with the Final Four, not just the Division One men's Final Four, was in Gillette this weekend. We will start with Division One because that's the headline thing. The first semifinal saw Penn State play Cornell. Cornell won 11-9. The crazy thing about that game to me was that they were able to win 11-9, and CJ Kirst did not score a point. The first time in 66 games, his whole career, which was 66 games at that point, that he had been held without a single point. And more impressive than even just that, which is impressive on its own. But Ryan Goldstein, their number 2, also did not have a point, and they still won. I know you didn't get to watch all of the things that happened. What did you see about this game that was, I don't know, being there is a different thing. I found myself watching it and being like, I kind of miss having an announcer or a commentator that's kind of telling me things that I can't necessarily see from my vantage point. So
yeah, no, I think it was definitely weird. Like, CJ having 0 points is like unprecedented. I mean, not just for him, but any star, when they come away with 0 points, that's and especially with him with his hand. Like, I know that was an issue, and obviously we'll get to his performance today. That completely negates the point now, but
yes.
at the time, on the timeline at least, it was a big talking point of like, is his hand injury finally starting to catch up to him, because he's played on it for a month and a half, whatever it is. So I thought that was kind of scary, but they still put out the win. But I think Liam Matthews really earned a few fans. Getting 4 goals for Penn State, and I think you played Cornell probably as well as they could have, for lack of a better term. But I think Cornell was just kind of their year, and when you're as deep as they are, it's kind of hard even when you stop their stars, unfortunately.
Yeah, no, I thought the same thing, that if before that game you had told Coach Tambroni or any Penn State fan, player, anyone involved in that organization, that you're going to hold CJ Kirst completely scoreless, Ryan Goldstein completely scoreless, and you're going to hold Cornell to 11 goals, I think they'd have snapped your hand off trying to make that deal happen. Like, that is kind of the winning recipe. Anyone, maybe not anyone, most of the kind of better teams in the country, I think, would say, oh, we can win that game. So yeah, seeing Penn State, especially as good as they have been this season, struggle to score against that offense. And to your point about his hand, where I was sitting was in the corner, and CJ, when Cornell was playing on our end of the field, CJ was the far end. So like when he's taking those shots from the left-hand side, like I'm seeing the shot the whole way, and he was missing by relatively large amounts. I mean, he's still CJ Kirst and stuff, but CJ Kirst missing the goal by a foot it's
a big deal.
Is weird. Yeah. So I was watching it thinking, and I don't know if I didn't know that he had the broken hand, or if I just had forgotten, or like what, but I'm just watching it. I'm like, what is happening? And then after the game, someone was like, yeah, the word on the street is that he's had a broken hand since the Albany game. And I was like, I had that same thought that you were talking about like, oh crap, is this now a thing?
Yep.
when you have that broken hand, it might feel good one day, but you might bump it on a table or something, and that that's the kind of the end of it. So
Yep. And that's the kind of injury that you're literally using all day, every day.
all day.
It's not like something where you can kind of relax, sit on it, whatever. Like this is something that, it's a hand. Like you use it all the time. So,
Well, and especially in lacrosse, where like that, I mean, everything you do with that stick is involving, obviously a broken ankle is a broken ankle, but like, or maybe a foot is a better analogy than a broken ankle, but like, that's a problem and stuff. But if you can kind of move and run, like, you can still be you, maybe just slightly slower. A broken hand, if you can't use that thing, like that is a real problem. So yeah, I was concerned, and like you said, obviously today kind of negated that, but we'll get to that later. The second semifinal was Syracuse versus Maryland. Maryland ran out 14-8 winners. That game, last week on the show, I said I thought Syracuse had a good chance to win, but I did warn, they have an egg in them. They can lay an egg. I compared them to Duke. I said they're better than Duke, but they have that same type of capability to just like absolutely not show up like Duke did for Denver, which I'm sure you remember. Like they have that capability in them to just not show up, and this was that game. They did not show up. And I mean, 14-8, I don't even think is representative of how that game went. Like
not at all.
It was ugly early.
I mean, to go from like I said to you pre-show, like go 1-0, and then all of a sudden it's 8-1, and it's like, whoa, like that, that escalated incredibly quickly. And even if you look at the stat sheet, like Maryland just dominated, I mean, top to bottom, like, and I'm with you. Like Syracuse, I didn't have Syracuse winning the game. I thought they'd put up a better fight though. So, seeing them lose by 6 is kind of just, it's disappointing. But I mean, Maryland, obviously, they're one of the best teams in the country for a reason. So it's also one of those things that's like, it kind of is what it is,
Yeah. They, kind of like you, I didn't necessarily think that Syracuse would win. I'm pretty sure I had Maryland winning that game last week. I'll double check that, but I'm pretty sure I had Maryland winning last week. But I thought it was a game Syracuse could win. If Syracuse had just turned it on, I don't think anyone of us would have been surprised. If that was flipped and they had kind of just run out, no one would have been like, oh, what the hell? But like I said, they had that egg in them, and they picked the worst time to do it. So,
well, I mean, when you hold Joey Spallina and Owen Hiltz to 1 point each, I mean, I thought Sam English was nice, 3 points from him, but it's like, if he's the only guy, like, you need someone else to put the ball in the back of the net at the end of the day. And, 2 points from 2 of your stars is, unacceptable.
Not good. Yeah. Well, and Joey's, if I remember correctly, again, I was there, and it's hard without the commentator. Joey's was in like garbage time, right? Like he had the assist on the last goal, I think. So I mean,
of course, most of that game for them felt like garbage time. So to be fair, I mean, no disrespect to the Q's fans out there, but I'm just calling it like I see it, unfortunately.
I mean, I would think they'd have to agree, we talked about Duke laying an egg. Like, I can't really say much about that Denver game. Like, that was one you just erased the tape and just we're starting fresh. So like, the issue is that Duke still had, 3/4 of their season, and Syracuse's was in the last game of their season. So then we move on to the championship game, which was earlier today, as of the time of recording, where Cornell obviously took on Maryland. Cornell won 13-10. It was Cornell's first title since 1977. The story of this game is CJ Kirst. He had 6 goals that took him to 82 on the season, which tied him for the single season record with Miles Thompson and John Reese from Yale in, I think it was 1982. So one of the greatest single seasons we have seen from especially from a scorer, for sure. I also wrote, was this the biggest I'm him championship game performance? I don't know about ever. It might be. The only one that I could think of off the top of my head that was close was Chris Cloutier in 2016. He had 5 goals in that game, and I remember that game and being like, every time he touched the ball, it was like it's inevitable. Like, it's just going to end up in the back of the net. And I remember that overtime, everyone's like, you get the ball to him, get the ball to him. And of course they did, and he scored and they won. But yeah, I was trying to think, is there, I'm not even sure that one is as good as CJ Kirst was today. I know I was there, and I told you during the pre-show, I was kind of not really paying attention, and I didn't realize that he had as good of a game as he did.
Yeah.
And you said, yeah, he had 4 in a row at one point,
Yeah.
which
he kind of just decided that, like, okay, this is my game, and just,
yeah,
you know, yeah. And not only him, but I also say this too, like, Maryland was so sloppy in that 4th quarter.
Mm-hmm.
Like, a 3-goal game to me is like, that can change very quickly. But when you turn the ball over 6 times in one quarter, when you're already down, I mean, you unfortunately don't really deserve to win that game. And I believe, what is that, the 3rd time in the last 5 years that Maryland's been the runner-up?
Ooh.
I'm almost positive.
That sounds right. It certainly sounds right. It might even be 4-4.
It looks like this is from the trustee site of Wikipedia. 2021, 2024, 2025.
Okay.
And then they have like 2016, 2015, 2012, 2011.
Yeah.
You know, so it's kind of the tale of the team at this point, of the program.
So that leads perfectly into my next thing, which is probably one of the, I don't know, a part of me is like, it's not even that spicy a take, but I think people will take it as a very spicy take. And that is this, and that John Tillman doesn't build championship teams. I think, and that's not a disrespect to Maryland. They are clearly, I don't even think there's even an argument. They are the best program in the country. We can debate whether or not John Tillman is the best head coach in the country. I think there's arguments for, I think there's arguments against. We don't have to get into all of that, but he's now 2-7 in championship games. And I know Maryland fans will say, "Oh yeah, but he's getting to 9. He's gotten to 9. Most other teams would beg for that." And I just want to be like, yes, fair, but also this is not the first run like this that we've seen. Duke from 2005 to like 2015 went to like 10 straight Final Fours. I know Syracuse has crazy runs in their history. Maryland has had other runs in their history. UVA has so many. Like, it's not like this is a completely unicorn kind of thing. Like, this has never happened before. This kind of thing happened. It's very cyclical in that sense, that like those things happen. They come back around. In 10 years, it may not be Maryland. Maybe it'll be Penn State. Penn State's been to 3 Final Fours in the last 6 years. Maybe in 10 years, it'll be their turn. Like, I don't know. I just feel like when you look at John Tillman's, the two championships that he has are very similar, at least on some surface levels. They both had go-to guys. Logan Wisnauskas in 2022 and Matt Rambo in 2017. I can't think of another go-to year, like go-to player. And both of those guys in those winning years were not just go-to players, they were go-to seniors who had like crazy, Tewaaraton level seasons. I won't get into Rambo's Tewaaraton, which I don't think he necessarily deserved, but that's another conversation for another day. And then they were just crazy deep, and they were kind of built around that one player. Those are the only 2 years they really had that thing. The rest of the time, it's what I think he's really good at is building crazy deep teams. Someone, maybe it was Hoagie, James Hogan. Someone has been saying, yeah, he does all this and he doesn't get, those number 1, number 2 kind of top recruits. And part of me is starting to think that might be by design. That he doesn't want those guys. And what he's doing instead of getting, 1 or 2 of the top 10 guys, he's getting like 10 of the 10 through 50 guys. And so he just builds out these crazy deep rosters where I think the bottom of their kind of like first line is not that different from like what you're getting out of their second and third lines. I mean, production in terms of like points and goals is a little bit different, but mostly because those first line guys are on the field a lot more. So yeah. And the other thing I think is, and this is a credit to John Tillman, but also maybe part of why he doesn't end up winning championships, is you give him a week to set up and prepare for a specific opponent, and he's almost unbeatable. Like it's too much time, but it's that transition from Saturday to Monday where he doesn't have the week to do it, that becomes a much more difficult thing for him, and like he just doesn't quite like adjust or something. I don't know what the deal is, but like that's why like in I think it was 2023 was the year that they like arguably shouldn't have even made the tournament. Like they should have been left out, arguably. And then made the run all the way to championship weekend, and everyone's like, see, they should have been in. And it's like, well, no, not necessarily. Like, just because they won doesn't mean they should have been in based on what they did.
Right.
But back to the idea of like him having that week to prepare, like, is it in that him really excelling at that? That's part of why they go on these runs in the playoffs or in the tournament, I guess.
That's interesting. I've never even thought of that. But that's incredibly valid. Like,
yeah,
that's wild.
What's funny is a Maryland fan said that to me, honestly. And
sometimes they can be the most honest people on earth.
Well, but I had the same thought. I was like, oh, because I do think John Tillman is a very good coach, and I think I think the things that he excels at are preparation, and that's why he's always in that iPad, because they're so prepared, and it's all right here, and he knows how to take this preparation and put it out there on the field. I do think he struggles at times making maybe live adjustments or short preparation adjustments, and that is typically where Maryland loses, is in those kinds of situations. So yeah, I don't know. Again, I don't think it's even all that spicy of a take, but I know people are going to come in and be like, we've been to 9 championship games. What are you talking about? And I'm like,
but that's one of those things too, where fans will use that type of thing when it makes them feel better. Because on one hand, yes, absolutely. If your favorite team is losing or makes the playoffs, but is a first round exit every year or whatnot, absolutely, they're going to want to trade places with that. Because they're going to say, well, at least we made it there. There's hope every year. We're in the Final Four, whatever. But then at the same time, those same fans are not happy right now for the however manyth time in the last 5-10 years. So like making it there is awesome. I'm not saying that that's like something to like look down upon, But I'm with you that like there comes to a point where it's like, at what point do you guys make not only enough changes, but the correct changes to get over that hump? Because at some point, it's kind of a waste of, hey, we're so good, we're getting there, and then failing again. So
it's not a 1-to-1, but you were talking about soccer, and I'm a Manchester United fan, and for the better part of nearly 30 years, we were like the cream of the crop. And I think it's 20 years. We won 13 Premier League titles. The 10 years after that, after the last title that we won, we finished second, I think 7 times. And it was not good enough. They fired, I think, five coaches that have finished third or second or third. And it's actually just gotten worse and worse and worse. And we finished like 15th this year, blah, blah, whatever. And I'm not suggesting that John Tillman should be fired. That would be ridiculous.
Of course.
But like you're saying, like something has to shift here. Something needs to be reworked or changed or something, because making the Final Four now is just like the bar at Maryland now. Yeah. Like everyone's gonna go there. So it's not even special. Like it's just like, this is who we are. And sure, you can say, yeah, Duke would love to be in our shoes. And that there's probably some truth to that.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I think if Duke had 9 shots, they'd have more than 2 titles.
Yep.
They wouldn't have won 9 probably. They were just in the championship game 2 years ago. Like they didn't win. Mm-hmm. So like they wouldn't have won 9. I'm not suggesting, Duke is better or anything, like, but at some point there's got to be some kind of recalibration to this, because 2-7, you're just first loser. I don't want to get all Ricky Bobby here, but like you're just the first loser. Cool, great. Now your program is known for not winning national championships. Like, is that better?
And again, to be fair, CJ Kirst did go kind of nuclear today.
Right.
But that doesn't take away from, year over year with the same problems happening. So,
right. I think when you look at any individual year, you can say, hey, we didn't think that Carolina team was gonna do that. Like they just went nuclear and they won. Like any individual year has the reason why they didn't win.
Yeah.
But when you stack up almost a decade worth of being in the championship game and it's 7 excuses, it's like, I mean,
that's the thing, is they might be legit reasons in the moment until you look at, like you said, stacking them up. Now it looks like you're just making an excuse for every single time you lose.
Yep.
And then when you win, now you're going to make some other excuse as to, this was the reason we won this time. So yeah.
And I really do think a lot of it is like the makeup of those rosters and these like these very, very deep teams that are heavily senior and upperclassmen led, that also has like a senior, like Powhatan level, like go-to guy. We need a bucket, put the ball in Rambo's stick and let him go to work kind of thing. And they have great players. Like Spanos is great. Yeah. Like, I'm forgetting
who's in the last 2 days.
Right. And who's the other one? It's Spanos and what's his name? You know what? I got their page up right here. What is his name? Oh, Urksa, Braden Urksa. Like they're great. They are. Let's pull back. They are very, very good players, but Eric Spanos was a 51-point player this year. Like he's not the like takeover, like dominate guy. He's this guy that's like built in this I don't want to call him a system player because I think he could play outside of Maryland, but like, he's just like the cog in the machine. We, as a Duke fan, I've talked about that for years, that I think Danowski is a little too reliant on cogs in the machine when he has those go-to guys. You know, when he had Brennan O'Neill there, the answer I think at times for that Duke team was let Brennan O'Neill go be Brennan O'Neill. Like, don't force him to play in this system. Just let him go work. You know, the Brennan O'Neill game in the PLL last year, like just get him the ball and get out the way.
Yeah.
They don't have that guy. They routinely don't have that kind of player or system in place. And the 2 times they did, they won national championships. So,
yep.
Anyway, that's my thing. We can move on to some other championship weekend stuff. Tufts won the D3 national championship 25-8. That put them on a 28 game unbeaten streak that stretches all the way back into the middle of last year. They have now won back-to-back national championships, and I'm going to screw this up. I know they set several scoring records. I'm pretty sure that they broke the game scoring record all by themselves. I think the national championship record was like 22, 23, something like that, maybe even 24, and they scored 25 by themselves.
Insane.
Absolutely
insane.
And they have been an absolute wagon this year. They won the semifinal by like 15. Crazy stuff, but absolutely deserved. Did you see their helmet that they did this weekend?
Yes,
what did you think?
I thought it was fine. It's not my cup of tea personally. First off, I'm not a huge fan of that silhouette, that style helmet. I'm definitely more of a Cascade guy. I can't think of the exact model, but the one the PLL uses. So that automatically is kind of like, iffy for me. But I mean, it was okay. I thought it looked much better on field than the initial photo I saw of it. I'm trying to pull it up right now. Hang on.
It's funny that you say that though, because I had the opposite thing. When I saw the helmet, I was like, "Oh, this is cool." I had a few issues with it, but overall, I was like, "This is really cool." And then when I saw it on them, I was kind of like, I don't know. It's not working for me as well as I thought it would."
Let me see. I can't find Brian's message now. That has it.
It was that satin gray, STX Aero.
I saw you guys talking about it.
And the gray had like a tint of blue, which I thought would be really cool with the uniform. But then when I saw it, I was like, oh, it's kind of a clashy blue. Like it doesn't quite work for me. And then the decals being that like kind of chrome reflective thing on white, it was hard it didn't read real well. So that was something I didn't like as a designer, was that that Tufts logo is so cool. Like they have a great logo.
Here we go.
And it was all kind of blending together. And so I just didn't personally love that, even though I did like the idea of like the red, white, and blue kind of stuff that they had done. It just didn't quite work out. But as a helmet, I was like, okay, there's enough here that I like it. And I saw it on them, and I was like, ugh.
Yeah, I don't know. Helmets are one of those things that it's tricky, just because like you'll see it in its own photo, then you'll see it on the player on the field, then you'll see it on a broadcast, and it could look completely different in all three.
Yeah.
So I was with you with like, I do think the gray is a little odd. Just because their main color is like that, sky blue. Yep. It looks weird, but I didn't mind it from the broadcast.
Okay,
is what I'll say.
I think I only watched maybe 3 or 4 minutes of the game itself, so I only really saw it in like still images, and I was like, oh, I don't know, it's kind of not working for me. But I could see how it would work better on the broadcast. So that's interesting. I'll take another look at that. But it was also weird to me because it's not like gray is one of their colors. You know, it's
Right.
the I'm gonna call it Carolina blue because that's what we call it. Carolina blue and brown are their colors, and they always use them so well. And then it was just kind of like a random gray helmet, which I think they've done before. I think they've done like matte gray when they were in Cascade and stuff. But
Honestly, they
anyway,
should have just done like a shiny silver if they wanted to go that route, you know, or reflective silver, or just stick with the blue. Honestly, I mean, that's your main color. You might as well just stick with it. But
a satin blue, that blue could have been cool. It could have been bad too. But you know, I love the satin finish.
yeah,
There's something about it that I just love. So I'd be down to at least see the satin, like Carolina blue. Anyway, we'll move on to the Division 2. That's the word I'm trying to say. Game where Adelphi won 9-8 in overtime. That was an absolutely heartbreaking game for anyone who did not watch it. Tampa scored what would have been the game winner because they scored with 9 seconds left, but there was kind of a scramble and a guy scooped the ball and just turned and fired it. And right when he scooped it, the coach called a timeout. So the ball went in the back of the net. They thought they had won, and then it turned out that the coach had called a timeout, and that goal was taken off the board. And in overtime, Adelphi scored and Tampa lost. So absolutely heartbreaking. I saw so many of like our friends and stuff who were like, I'm a coach and I'm terrified of making that mistake. And the part that was weird to me, and I don't want to be too harsh on that head coach, because like I understand wanting to preserve that possession and maybe even wanting to try to like set up a play or something. But the thing that I didn't understand was that there was kind of that scrum for the ball, and then the ball popped out, and there was a guy, you know, 3-4 yards away that scooped it up cleanly. Like he wasn't under pressure or anything. Like there was no need to call that timeout. And it's one of those things where sometimes I think, and I say this as someone who has coached lacrosse, sometimes I think we overthink things, and it's like, instead of just like letting the players play and like make the plays, we try and like control it and like set up everything. And it's like, oh, and I know some coaches that like under 20 seconds or something, unless it's like a clear and you just kind of get it down and there's like an actual point to break, they won't call a timeout if it's under 20 seconds and like play is happening. They just refuse, because let the players make plays, you know?
Yeah.
So,
and in that situation too, like you said, it's tough because so he calls timeout. Now we're talking about it because the kid buried it. If he doesn't bury it, the only thing we're really talking about is, hey, he picked it up cleanly. Did you need to take it? Maybe not, you know? But at the same time, if they take that timeout, they come out and draw up a game-winning play, all of a sudden it's like, that was a great call, you know? So it's almost like you're screwed either way, because if you win, you're praised for it. Doesn't matter what happened. But if you lose, like they did, all of a sudden it's like, not only did you take it when you probably didn't need to, but the kid buried it, and then you lose an OT, which makes it even, and then national championship game of all games. So,
yeah,
you know,
heartbreaking. I feel for them. Yeah. I was cheering for
especially
Tampa,
the range of emotions those kids had to feel, going from we just won the game to wait, our coach did what? And then you have to go watch the other team bury one to win the game. Like that's just a roller coaster.
Well, if I remember correctly, I was watching the game, but I don't remember off the top of my head. I think Adelphi won the face-off and took it down and scored. So like, you thought you won the game, and then you don't even get a chance. I mean, I guess technically coming out of the timeout, they did have a chance, but like you don't even have a chance in overtime to like put your stamp on the game and like go win it, because the ball was on the other end of the field. So yeah, that's tough. But the not last game of the weekend chronologically, but the last game to talk about was the Division One women's championship, which UNC won 12-8, capping off their undefeated season. Not quite the wagon that Tufts was, but an absolute wagon, 100%.
Yeah, 22-0 is insane in any sport.
Yeah.
That is, I mean, to not have any type of slip up where you drop a game
Mhm.
here or there is wild. And I mean, they won nearly every statistical category. I mean, I think they had 4 players with at least 3 points in the championship
Mhm.
game. So, I mean, spreading the ball around pretty well too, which is, I mean, they're like a well-oiled machine at this point. So,
Yeah. And the big spotlight is on Chloe Humphrey specifically, but all 3 of the Humphrey sisters, rightfully so. They deserve that. But that North Carolina team from top to bottom is just so good. And Northwestern is a very good team, and they didn't really look it.
yeah, not at all. Which it's disappointing. You work all the whole year to get here, and then kind of like Syracuse, you lay an egg, and it's like,
yeah. Well, and this one though, somewhat in defense of Northwestern, Syracuse, I felt like a lot of it was they laid an egg. A lot of Northwestern felt like UNC was just that much better than them.
That's fair.
It was, I mean, in a manner of speaking, I think it's fair to say that they laid an egg, but it's also feels a little bit harsh because it was just like UNC is just this like juggernaut and just wasn't letting them do things. I thought one of the crazier parts of that game to me was Delaney Switzer, I think it's Schweitzer, the goalie for Northwestern, was arguably the MVP of that game. Yeah. I think she finished with 17 saves. She was incredible. And UNC absolutely blew them away. Like Northwestern was never really in that game apart from maybe 1-0.
Yeah.
And yet Delaney Switzer could have arguably been the MVP of that game. I think
she probably would have won an award if you could give it to. I'm not sure if you are allowed to give it to a losing team, but like, I mean, if I saw a stat sheet that just said 17 saves, 12 goals against, like, I'd be like, hey, that's pretty good. That means you're getting peppered with shots, and 17 of them. I don't care about the 12. Like, you save 17.
No.
And then you see, but their own offense only scored 8 goals, and it's like, oh, okay.
Well, and a good portion of the 12 that went in, there was no one was saving those. Like, it's one-on-one on the doorstep and stuff. Like, yeah, she's not saving those, of course not. So yeah, no, I was blown away. We have seen a lot of. I'm relatively new to women's lacrosse, just kind of across the board. I don't understand what I'm watching in the college game, other than put the ball in the back of the net, like that basic level. Like I understand, obviously that's the point of the game, but so many of the rules are just so different that like I just don't know what I'm watching. So the WLL championship series was kind of like my first like real foray. I know who a lot of the big names are. I knew who Taylor Cummings was when she was playing and stuff. Like I knew that kind of stuff, but I just didn't really know the game. So I was thinking about it, and I was like, we've seen so much good goalie play between the championship series and now that I'm just blown away. And I tweeted after that game, I was like, with apologies to Taylor Moreno and Madison Doucette, the Palms and Charging goalies respectively. I might have a new favorite WLL goalie real soon because Delaney Schweitzer is going to be a WLL goalie. She graduated. Oh, by the way, that also blew my mind. Like, I'm watching this game and I'm like, man, she is killing it. And I look it up, and she spent, I think it's 3 years, but it was only like 2.5 school years or something like that, at USC. Then went to Syracuse for 2 years, and then transferred as a graduate to Northwestern. So her freshman year was like 2019. She's like, I sent that GIF to Brian of oh man, what's his name? The one with the guy, the like old guy who has like the skateboard, and he walks up and he's like, how do you do, fellow kids? I was like, that's Delaney Schweitzer at Northwestern this year. That kind of blew my mind. But yeah, I'm excited to see her come to the WLL whenever that. I know they just did the All-Star game draft. I don't think she was in it that I'm aware of, but suffice it to say, if next year they have, a full season, I would fully expect her to be there. She was incredible. And then the other one again was Chloe Humphrey. I don't know if you saw Deemer Class compared her to, he said she was a mix between Michael Powell, Michael Sowers, and Charlotte North, which
we gotta stop doing this. We gotta stop doing this. It's the reaching that sometimes we have to do as sports fans to be like, oh, they're a combination of this and this. I'm sorry, no one is seeing those players watching anybody play, and that's not a disrespect to her. I'm not saying she wasn't influenced by those people, but it's just one of those things that's like, can we just acknowledge that she's just her? I don't know. I can't stand these comparisons and trying to pull different things from different people's games.
Yeah, I'm like real back and forth on the idea, because like I understand it's helpful. I think sometimes we get not sometimes, a lot of times we get overly carried away with, oh, this guy is the next so and so or something. But like, the Joey Spallina debate that's been happening for, I mean, it's really probably been happening since he stepped onto campus at Syracuse, but especially the last few weeks, that he talked about in the interview after the quarterfinals last weekend, where people were like, he can't dodge and stuff. And I have compared him to Jeff Teat in the sense of like how he doesn't dodge the way that people say that he doesn't dodge. He doesn't beat his man. He doesn't do this. He doesn't do that. And I'm like, Jeff Teat doesn't do that either. Jeff Teat's not a fleet foot, he's not Jordan Wolf, like just blowing past people. He uses his body. He gets people onto his hips and is just so good at finding gaps and passes and stuff. And so it's not a comparison. I'm not saying that Joey Spallina is going to be Jeff Teat. I'm just saying that their games and the way that they play are similar. And so that's why I have like some pushback, like when you're like, we got to stop doing this. I'm like, I mean, I kind of get why you do it, but also you're right that it goes way too far, and
it's just a slippery slope
for sure. And we hyperbolize it a lot as well. Like someone who's clearly not Michael Powell gets compared to Michael Powell because he did one kind of thing that maybe sort of, if you squinted with one eye and kind of cocked your head to the side, maybe reminded you of Michael Powell is, we do that obviously way too much.
It's just like on draft night when they're like, oh, this player is going to be a lot like insert PLL All-Star. And I'm like, wait, hang on. Like they haven't even played 1 second of pro ball. And we're talking about how they're going to be like this all-star that's played for 10 years, whatever it is. It's just, I'm with you to an extent of like, it can be healthy to be like, oh, hey, you're saying this isn't going to work. For example, the Spleen example, this isn't going to work. Okay, well, here's a guy that it has worked for in multiple leagues. That's 100% fair. But sometimes I think when we're starting to say like, oh, there's 3 different, legends that I see in this person's game, I'm kind of like, okay, let's relax now. Let's relax.
Yeah, that specific instance was one that kind of made me flip my answer, because like normally I'm like, yeah, I mean, I get comparisons. Like sometimes I think we complain about comparisons to complain about like it's the same sort of thing in the opposite direction. Yeah. But when that one came up, I was like, no, I kind of get why you guys are like, this is dumb. This is dumb.
And it also just because. Sorry, I was just going to say, it also just puts an unrealistic career arc then, because like we might know what we're talking about when we say, oh, this reminds me of this player. We're not saying they're going to be that player, but everyone else then takes it as like oh, well, 2 years ago, you said that Spalino was going to be Jeff Teat, Neil. So, and then all of a sudden it's like, wait a minute, that's not what and now that player has like Jeff Teat expectations for no reason. It's like no one said he was Jeff Teat, like ever.
Right. Well, and also the Deemer class didn't explain it. Like I had to guess at what he even meant. Right. And I don't even know that I'm right. I was like, I guess he's saying that she's this and this, but I don't know. Like you didn't even explain it. You just slid that out there.
Like, right. Oh, I guess. I guess. That's the thing. If you have to guess what they're even talking about, that to me makes the whole point. I mean, irrelevant. It's like if I can look at that player and say, oh wow, that looks like insert player, fine. But yeah, I had a good laugh at that one when I saw that today.
All right, speaking of Jeff Teat, not that he played, but he does play box. So that's a transition, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. We're moving on to the NLL finals. The Buffalo Bandits won game 3 of the NLL finals 15-6 to officially secure probably the thing that I think everyone knew was probably going to happen this year. And they secured their three-peat of championships. That was a pretty close game for a while.
Yeah, good 30 minutes.
The problem is the game is 60 minutes.
Yep. Yeah, so when your opponent shows up and plays 60 and you're over here playing 30, generally doesn't work out very well.
No, not very well. It was 7-6 at halftime, and the Bandits kept the Rush scoreless for the final 34 minutes of the game and ran out with a 15-6 win. They scored 8 unanswered goals. Well, I don't know if it was 8 unanswered. They scored 8 second half points that the Rush did not score at all in the second half.
Well, it was unanswered because the Rush just didn't score again.
Right. It was 8 unanswered, but I don't know if was it 9? Like how long was the run? Was it 9 unanswered? I don't know. But either way, that second half, they just ran out. Yeah. I don't know what happened.
Buffalo is Buffalo. That's
Buffalo.
That's kind of the only explanation. I mean, I feel like a lot of times when we're seeing games like this, it's like, okay, they won the faceoff battle, 20-2 or whatever. But Jake Naso actually won the faceoff battle. He won 15 of 25. So it's not like the Rush were like failing to get possessions. They had plenty of chances. And don't get me wrong. I mean, like Matt Vince is the greatest goalie to ever do it. Like I'm not sitting here saying the Rush should have put up 12 goals, but it is one of those things that's like you turn your team around in an offseason. You go 13-5. Everyone all of a sudden is like, oh, well, they could actually contend and they could take down Buffalo. And then you win at home last week to even the series. And it's like, okay, you just need one solid game in Banditland. You go 30 more minutes and you're only down 1. And everyone is watching at home saying, this is the time. Like, take them down. And then you come out the second half and it is complete disaster, like start to finish. And I just, if this team can't beat the Bandits at what I would consider a down year by the Bandits standards. Who's ever beating them? It's like this Bandits team reminded me a lot of the Kansas City Chiefs, I believe it was last year, where like of all the years they were dominant, it was like, this is the one that they're going to lose. And then they go win the championship. And it's like, okay, well, you know, I guess that is what it is. And for Saskatchewan, it's like, so you give up 9 points to Josh Byrne, 8 points to Dane Smith. Were you stopping anybody? Like, you know, I just, it was just one of those things that it was just like, I was so hopeful after 30 minutes, and then it was just like 1, 2, 3, 4 in a row for Buffalo or something like that. And it was like, all right, this is, you know, because you already knew going into it that you're going to have to go goal for goal with them. Like they're not there. There are a lot of teams out there that I'm like, you could be down 3, 4, 5. I saw the Colorado Mammoth come back from 7 down a couple of times in the last couple of years. Like it's not unheard of, but against Buffalo, you're not doing that. So when you're going goal for goal for them in the first half, and then you just let them go like a minute 30 with like 4 goals, like, you know, it's especially when your goaltender just won goalie of the year, like a week prior.
Yeah.
You know, it's a lot of negatives, unfortunately, for them, but
they're that wagon. Like, you know, we talked about it with Tufts, we talked about it with UNC. Like they're just, you know, you just hitch yourself to them and just let it go. But this is so dumb. But you were talking about Dane and Josh and their point totals, and I don't even know if they still do it. I guess they still do it. The ESPYs, that's still a thing, right?
Yeah, I think so.
I guess it was the ESPYs in 2009. I think Justin Timberlake was the host, and that was the year that Memphis played Kansas in the national championship for basketball. Justin Timberlake is from Memphis. He's a big Memphis basketball fan. And that was the year that Memphis had Derrick Rose, and John Calipari was the coach and stuff. And they lost that game late. Like it was like a real back and forth game. And then like in the last minute they missed. And there's this thing that I'm always looking for like a GIF of or something. And I can't find anyone that's ever like chopped this up and made this, but it's so funny. And I think about it all the time. And they come back from like a commercial, and Justin's like standing in the audience, and he looks down the camera and he's like, "Hey, Coach Calipari, Memphis Tigers." And he just turns around, and Mario Chalmers is sitting in the audience, and Mario Chalmers hit a couple of big shots, and he just walks up and he sticks his hand in his face, and he's just like this, and he's just sitting there. And then he turns back to the camera and he goes, "Was that so hard?" And I think about it all the time when someone does these like 9-10 point, and especially when it's like the people that you expect, when it's like, you know, you need to stop Josh Byrne and Dane Smith. Like that's items number 1 and number 2 on the defensive game plan is like limit them. So when they go off, it's all I can think of is just like, you know, was that so hard? Was that so hard?
Well, and to make it worse, like there was a point in time in that third quarter where it wasn't like they were getting inside and finishing. Like there was a few of those. I know Chase Frazier had a nice like one hand behind the back on the doorstep.
That was crazy.
But there was like 3 or 4 goals in a row where they were pulling from like, I don't know, 25, 30 feet away. Just, I mean, I'm talking wide open lanes. Just no one's jumping in front. They're not sliding. It was literally just, hey, go set a pick over here. I'm just going to come to the top and rip it. And I'm like, so this has happened to you 2 times in a row now. What are you doing the third? Oh, now it's happened to and now fourth. Like at some point, one of you has to take one for the team and jump in front of this ball, or slide, step. I mean, something. And it's just never happened over the last. I mean, they've won 3 years in a row, but they've been, I think, 5 years in a row now. Like, and we have, and I'm talking about Dane and Josh, like. We haven't even touched on any of their quote role players who could go to another team and be the first or second option.
Yeah.
Like, and I really do think the only way that the Bandits fall, their dynasty falls anytime soon, is if Matt Vince decides to hang it up and then their goalie that comes in isn't, even half of what he is.
And even then, that seems like it just kind of makes them slightly more human. Like they could still win, with a bad, maybe not with a bad goalie, but like with somewhat more mediocre goalie play, you'd still think that they'd be upper echelon of the league.
Yeah.
So
I mean, if you're putting up 15 points a game against the goalie of the year,
right,
you can give up 14.
Right.
I think about that quite a bit of like, I do think one end affects the other. And I do think like their offense is as good as it is because they have Matt Vince and they have big guys like Paul Dawson, Steve Priola, who, I mean, they're veterans. They take balls to the side every single game. Like it's nothing. And so I do think like losing them will hurt their offense to a degree, but because they have so many number one, number two options, it's not really going to matter. Like you're going to have a team come and play their best games 1 through 3. You can't lay a dud in 2 of the games, play really well at home and not have any road presence. Like,
right.
And I think too, like 2 years ago, the Mammoth won 3 years ago. They go back in game 3, they lose 13-4. I can't recall the score last year, but then now this year, 15-6. Like these types of games where you're giving up 13, 15 goals and putting up 4 and 6. And it goes into a deeper conversation about like, we all knew the Bandits were the best team in the league. We knew they were going to make the finals. We knew they're probably going to win. I genuinely don't know what you do to stop them. I think Vancouver probably has the best chance over the next however many years. I think they're a
team. They're a team if they make some of those trade deadline moves earlier in the season, maybe they are in the NLL finals and like I'm with you. I think that could be. I am relatively an outsider to the NLL, but even I was like, oh, okay. Like, I
mean, you saw once they got Del Bianco, like all of a sudden, I think it was like 7 straight or something like that. And granted, don't get me wrong, like they had their opportunity to beat Buffalo in the semis, but I do think like they just got Ethan Ticehurst today from the Roughnecks, who will make them even better next year. And I do think having a full season of CDB and the offense they have, they're going to be a wagon. And if they can just get over that hump of going west to east, like I would look for them to be kind of the next up, assuming that Toronto continues to struggle with Buffalo, which they have for the last I don't know how many years. But to answer your question, you asked me pre-pod. Yes, they are the favorites next year. Until they lose Matt Vince, to me, they're a definitive yes, you're the favorites. Even once they lose Matt Vince, they're probably still up there, first or second. So,
well, and you never. I doubt that it happens, but like if Matt Vince steps down this offseason and they go get Nick Rose, like I don't think that would happen. But if they did, like you'd be like, oh yeah, they're gonna win the next 3 again, like So so maybe here's a more interesting question, especially right here today. Who, if you had to put your life savings on it, who right here today do you think has the best shot at knocking them off next year?
Vancouver. That's it. I am a bit biased against the Rush. I'll admit that, but I just don't. Even coming into the series, I didn't feel like they had. Like to me, they were an 18-game team, not a 25-game team, whatever it was with the playoffs. Like I love what they did in the regular season. I think they have a great young core. I just 6 goals. That's tough
30
to say.
minutes.
Yeah, it's tough to like, you're going the first half, your team's tweeting about how it's a close game, and then you give up 8 more in the second half unanswered. Like that's tough for me to then be like, yeah, you can come back and win, But then I look at teams like Rochester put together a really good year at the end of the season. Like to me, they were a sleeper team that not too many people talked about as like a headlining, hey, they could win it all, until they were already in the playoffs. And then all of a sudden it was like, well, yeah, we've seen this team, with Connor Fields. And it's like, yeah, you guys weren't saying that until recently. But even them, like, their goaltending situation is iffy. I mean, they didn't even have a definitive starter. And I understand Ryan Hartley was injured, off and on and all that. But again, Matt Vince is there. That's him. So is your goaltender beating them? Probably not. Nick Rose in Toronto, I want to believe in them so bad to knock off Buffalo, but they haven't done it. Like, you look at their roster and it's like incredible talent all over and still nothing. Granted, CJ Kirst should be there next season. So, maybe he changes and makes them better, but it's a long-winded answer, but like, I just don't see anybody else. San Diego, they choke in the playoffs way too much for me to say like, you're going to go win. I mean, this is a team that couldn't even beat the Colorado Mammoth back-to-back years a couple of years ago. And then you lose again. It's just, there's too many ifs with all these other teams, whereas Buffalo, top to bottom, is just immaculate. So, but Vancouver's the best to me.
Yeah. The Seals feel like a team that's like built to beat Buffalo. They just so rarely get to the point where they can beat Buffalo. If they met in a finals or something, I'd be like, oh yeah, there's something about them. Again, relative outsider, but there's something about them over the last few years that it feels like we talk about it with Duke and Syracuse all the time. Again, Duke guy, whatever. There's something about those two teams that like doesn't really matter who's up, who's down, whatever. They get together and it I don't know. They just always play that game at that level. And maybe, maybe a better scenario is Duke UVA. Doesn't matter who's up, who's down, whatever. Duke, for some reason, beats UVA. They've beaten them every time for like 20 years. Like, there's just something about them that like Duke, and I see the same thing when I see the Seals. There's like, I'm not saying that they have beaten them every time for 20 years, but there's something about them that feels like they're almost like designed. They're built around the concept of how do we beat Buffalo. The problem is that's it. They beat Buffalo and then they can't beat anyone else. So
and I mean, to their credit, like they got rid of like big names last offseason and they replaced them with big names. The issue I had with them last offseason was I didn't feel like they got exponentially better by shipping those guys out of town, aside from you get Zach Currier in return. And he arguably should have been in MVP talks more seriously than he was. That being said, I didn't think losing Curtis Dixon and Dane Doby and replacing them with guys like, and respectively, I mean, they're Hall of Famers, guys like Rob Hellier, Ryan Benesh, Garrett McIntosh. Those are all great players individually. But like, did they get better? I didn't think so. And then like, to your point, like beating Buffalo is one thing, but you have to then get through the gauntlet before then. So when you struggle with health like they did, I mean, they lost Trevor Baptiste for like 9 games, whatever it was. And granted, to their credit, they did turn it around. They started 3-5 and finished like 9-9 or something like that. But then it's like, you got to get through the conference or, former conference finals to even get a shot at Buffalo. So it's like, at what point do you say, okay, constructing a roster specifically to beat Buffalo isn't actually doing us much good, which is why I don't see them beating Vancouver next year. There are a handful of teams I see them beating, but Vancouver's not one of them by any means. And that's with a young hot goalie with Chris Riglieri, All this to say, Buffalo's too good. Buffalo,
break them up.
Yeah,
the monopoly.
Yep.
Break them up.
Step in.
Where's David Stern when you need him?
Yeah, can we veto some trades, please? That's the other thing. Is these teams at the trade deadline, they always go and help Buffalo. I don't understand. At some point, these teams have to look themselves in the mirror and say, we're only helping them, and we never see the dividends on the back end. The Mammoth last year traded Paul Dawson. He helps them tremendously. They go win the championship. Milkman signs there. They go win a championship. This year, Ron John gets traded there. Kyle Matisse gets traded there. These other teams didn't get much better, but Buffalo goes and wins another championship. At some point, guys, we got to look ourselves in the mirror and be like, this is not the direction we want the league to go. All right. It's getting ridiculous.
Speaking of Milkman, this is another spectacular transition.
I knew what you were going to.
Which is funny because it's not even about Milkman. PLL training camp has officially started. Not a ton to really get into there. The big kind of note so far in the first few days is that Dan Arestia has reported that the Redwoods are signing Jake Naso. That's something that I think every single person who's even remotely paying attention to the NLL was expecting and hoping that someone was going to pick him up. He's been so good and is one of the few kind of elite guys in the NLL who isn't signed to the PLL, except for maybe a few guys. I don't even know off the top of my head. Maybe a few guys play MSL, but as far as I'm aware, most of the top guys are playing PLL already, except Jake Naso was the exception. I guess arguably Connor Farrell is an exception, although he's good enough for them, clearly. I don't know that you would really say that he's been an elite guy at the NLL.
He improved Buffalo just because Buffalo didn't have a guy after Gavin Adler retired. So he's, you know. Right. But the other one I'll throw in there is Jake Withers.
Max Adler?
Max Adler. Excuse me.
No, you said Gavin, and I went with it, and then I was like, wait a minute, the guy that plays for the Atlas?
Sorry, no, he's doing double time now. He's, you know.
Yeah, I was like, wait, hold on, I missed something.
No, sorry, Max Adler. But yeah, Jake Withers, who plays for Halifax, he plays MSL as well. For Peterborough, though. So not the superpowered Chiefs. But
who Peterborough just beat.
Yeah. Just wait till Dane, Josh, and Ian get up there.
Yeah, I was gonna say they're not at full strength yet. That's a little bit different.
But yeah, good for Naso finally getting a shot. I do wonder though, like, what does that do to TD, or vice versa? I guess, you know, if like, do they keep? I doubt they keep both.
Yeah, I wouldn't think so. To be completely honest, the Redwoods being the one that signed them surprised me, but it feels like one of those things where like he'll come into camp, he'll get some face-offs and stuff, and teams will get to see him at you know, a PLL, maybe not the highest level of PLL, but they'll get to see him, and if and when the Redwoods cut him, someone else will pick him up. Excuse me. So, you know, I know a lot of people were complaining about Drip King, especially in relation to Jake Naso not being signed. But I think we all knew that Jake Naso was going to get signed. I think I don't know what the deal is with the PLL and like waiting. It sounds like, I mean, clearly Dan Arestia has reported it. It sounds like the deal was done. My guess would be that they're waiting to announce it until after the NLL finals, which of course were Saturday night. So what they're still waiting on, no idea. But at some point, I'm assuming they'll announce it. I mean, if they signed him and he shows up to camp on Wednesday, like they're going to have to announce it, right? Like, I don't. Yeah.
That's what's weird is like Levi Anderson was at Whips practice today, and he was just playing for the Rush 3 days ago. And then here, Jake Naso is reportedly signed, and there's not even so much as an announcement, let alone him being there. So
I didn't know Levi Anderson was there. I feel like, well, I guess I was at the national championship today. I keep forgetting that was today. So I guess that kind of makes sense. I was not super online, at least in terms of like viewing what other people were posting. You know, I posted some stuff, but that was it. But I didn't even know Levi Anderson I didn't even know. Am I misremembering? Did he finish the season last year? For some reason, in my head, I was thinking that he didn't, that he had like gotten dropped or cut or something, and he didn't
I'm
finish it.
pretty sure he finished with the Whips.
Okay. I must have made that up because I also remember like when he started with the Rush this year, being like, oh, that's cool. Like the guy, you know, he came on kind of late with the Whips, and now he's getting the shot. And I remember when he was in camp with the Rush, people were saying like, oh, he's actually been really impressive. And like, I think it went from him being kind of like borderline whether or not he was going to make it to kind of being like one of the more important players. But
yeah, he played in 7 games last year.
Okay.
I don't know how many of those were with Maryland versus. Oh wait, he didn't play for the Redwoods, did he?
No, I think that was the thing, was that he was with the Redwoods but never played, and that's why the Whips picked him up, because he was, you know, the like 3-game rule or whatever that rule is. If you don't play, they can pick you up. So, and people are all like, wait, why wasn't he playing? The Woods weren't even good. Like, what do you mean they
should have been trying everything?
Yeah. That's one of the things about the PLL that's really strange to me, is how many coaches are just like, nope, we're riding with these guys, and it's like, it's not working. Yep. I get it for a couple of games, but like when it's been 4 or 5 games and it's just not working, move on. Not from everyone or anything, but like make some changes. Like, let's figure this thing out. It's so strange to me. I guess the only other thing from PLL training camp, again, there hasn't been a ton, is just that we're starting to see some of the gear that's come out, and most of what we've seen, really probably almost everything that we have seen, with one exception that I can think of, has been stuff that we've already seen, that was you know, last year or championship series or something. All of the helmets are things we've seen before. Every jersey I've seen except for the Denver Outlaws jersey, which is not entirely different. They mostly just kind of tweaked some things, the striping on the shoulders mostly. I think they removed that the collar too, right? Wasn't it? It was gray last year, right? And I think it's all black this year. So yeah, they did that. But as far as I have seen, that's the only thing that's new, and it's more of a tweak. I'm wondering if everyone, the training camp gear is going to be the one set that will be, you know, a previous year. I don't know how, you know, you said you weren't a soccer guy. MLS does this where every year every team gets one new jersey. It's on a 2-year rotation. So you get a new home this year, a new away next year, a new home, a new away. And I part of me wondered if that's what the PLL is doing, where one set will be from last year, more or less, maybe with a few tweaks like Denver. And then the other one, that, you know, your second uniform will be completely different. And then obviously there'll be throwbacks and Indigenous Heritage Weekend uniforms that will probably be different, I'd assume. But
I'm hoping they're vastly different this year. Like,
which ones?
The Indigenous Heritage uniforms. I felt like last year's was like basically just like the normal jerseys, and then they just replaced the logo and just put on a buffalo, or, you know, and like they were cool designs, but me as a consumer, I already had a Black Outlaws one. Why would I buy a Black Outlaws one with the buffalo?
Because it has a buffalo.
I guess. You know, this is also my clamoring to the PLL to put out an orange Outlaws jersey, please.
Yeah, they need one, and especially like, you know, it was like how long we were asking for a pink chrome jersey. Like,
Yep, same thing.
And then they finally did it and then rebranded the team. And it was like, oh, great. I felt like I had a question. I got nothing. I'm trying to think of other gear that we've seen. The Water Dogs white helmet is back. We've seen their purple jerseys are back. The same ones from last year. The Cannons are wearing their blue chrome helmet that they wore at the championship series.
It's a great helmet.
It is a great helmet. I am somewhat disappointed. I'm a gear guy. I like seeing all the new gear. So they were probably always going to disappoint me in anything that they kept the same. But I also got to thinking and I was like, you got to buy new helmets every year, regardless. So why not put a little extra sauce into it or something? And I know the argument of brand recognition and stuff, but I think we overthink that a bit. I don't think that anyone is turning on a Water Dogs game and being like, wait, the purple one is the Water Dogs? Like, what? I didn't know. Like I think the color and maybe an element or two it is important to kind of keep the same more or less. Obviously, again, I'm a soccer guy. They change uniforms every single year. And no one is like, oh, I don't know which one is the team I support. Like I think we overstate the brand recognition thing. I think that's an old school NFL thing, and it's just kind of continued to carry over, even though we have high def TVs and stuff. And in the case of the PLL, in almost every team's uniforms, the logo is this big on the front of the jersey. Like, it's not hard to figure out which team is which. So I don't know. I'm mildly disappointed, but I'm holding out hope that we're gonna get some cool stuff with the rest of it. I want to see a satin Cascade helmet. That's what I need.
Yeah. So. I mean, by my count, there's still a few that we haven't seen. So maybe there's a change on some of the secondary helmets. I'm hoping that, like I said, it's at least the MLS thing of trying to offset them. That did remind me one more thing to talk about. I don't know. Presumably you saw RP3 in Whipsnake's gear. That was so weird. And I get it's pro sports and guys play for different teams, but this dude was a New York kid who went to Cornell, was drafted by the New York Lizards, won a championship with the New York Lizards, and seeing him with Maryland emblazoned across his chest in Maryland Terrapins colors was just, it was so weird. It's so weird. Like I don't know that I'm going to ever get used to seeing that for however long he continues to play with them. It's weird. It's real weird. I know when they released those media day photos, I was like, oh, that's gonna take some getting used to. Yeah. Also, this is totally irrelevant, but I started a new job last week or the week before, I can't remember. And I work direct. I'm the creative director, and I work with the marketing director, like hand in hand on everything, pretty much. And the creative director looks just like RP3. Like, it's so weird. It's so weird. He's like, he's slightly more round, and obviously, like, RP3 is shredded. Yeah. And so this guy's got a little bit of the like baby fat in him, but I'm like, every time I'm talking to him, I'm just like, I feel like I'm talking to RP3 right now. He's got, I feel bad saying this. He's got that punchable RP3 face, and I'm like, oh, I feel bad. But hey, maybe that's just his day job.
I mean,
Maybe you're secretly working with RP3 and you just didn't know it till now. Maybe RP3 is that's not even his real name. That's like a stage name.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. That is definitely a point worth considering, and I will spend the rest of my night wondering.
Yep.
So thanks for that. I appreciate that. I do go into work tomorrow though, so I'll investigate.
I'll just go up to him and just yell his name, but hey Rob, and see if he if he turns and
I got you. I got you. Yep. All right. Well, with that being said, thank you guys for tuning in to this episode of The Runout. Brandon, thank you for joining me. Stoked for the start of the PLL season and the rest of however long you are with us.
Yep.
So, if you enjoyed this episode, like, comment, subscribe, all that stuff, share it with a friend. It helps us so much more than we can really explain, but that will do it for us today. So until next time, I will catch you guys on the internet. We will catch you guys on the internet. How about that?
Yes, chronically online.
Chronically online. Too much. People tell me I need to get off the internet and I should probably listen.
Sometimes.
Sometimes.